What up, what up? It's your boy Cam Meekins, the Cam Meekins Show. I'm in here today with my guy Leedz of Leedz Edutainment. What's up, bro?
What's going on, Cam? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I appreciate you coming on. You and I just did a great Instagram interview for your channel the other day. So I was like, let me bring him on and flip this around and kind of hear your story a little bit. So, you know, you run a concert promotion business, a hip hop company in a lot of ways, record label. But for the people who don't know, maybe could you start by just describing what you do?
Well, that's
probably
a little of everything.
Yeah,
a little of everything. But no, I mean, I started off, throwing concerts, pretty much underground hip hop concerts at the Middle East and Boston. That's kind of was my primary thing. I did that and then kind of went up through the ranks at the Middle East, became a talent buyer, and then became the lead talent buyer in the Middle East nightclub in Boston, and eventually became GM, intermittent GM. And then along the way, I've dabbled in so many miscellaneous things. I've run a studio, I've managed artists, I've worked as a record label, and, now I'm doing a podcast, and now it's wherever, wherever this music business takes me at this point, but mainly what I'm known for is being concert promoter, underground hip hop concert promoter.
Yeah, well, I feel like, you're kind of synonymous with hip hop in Boston. And so I'm curious kind of where did that passion come from for you in terms of the music and just the culture of the Boston music scene? Did you just kind of stumble into that, or you were always into music in that way, or?
Well, I mean, I've been diehard into hip hop since 1990, I'd say 92 is really, I mean, I listened to hip hop before then, but like 1992 is when I really started getting into it and buying tapes and CDs and all that. It wasn't really much of a Boston thing at that point because, you didn't hear a lot about Boston MCs. I mean, Gangstar Guru said he was from Boston, but there was more emphasis on New York. Ed O.G. obviously in the Bulldogs, but I didn't get onto that till later. So, it was just kind of like a love for hip hop, and really it kind of just dominated everything, Wu-Tang and me and my boy Peter Parker, we grew up together. We were just diehards, you know what I mean? Like everything, listened to everything new. I mean, we were getting the new CDs every Tuesday. I mean, it was just like we had everything. And but the Boston, I didn't really start getting into the Boston hip hop scene until I was actually in it. Actually, I take that back. I started getting into the Boston hip hop scene probably in the late 90s when I was coming to Boston, to the Middle East, to see Boston hip hop shows with, Ed O.G. was kind of resurfacing, and then Acrobatic and Mr. Lift, 7L Esoteric, Rex, Schizophrenics, Creators. There's a bunch more. But yeah, that's kind of what got me into it. I didn't really have any intention at that point of being a part of it, but when you start throwing shows in Boston, you just become that. You become part of it, and you meet all these different artists, and and now it's just, it's just part of who I am now. I've lived in Boston for 20 years now.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. And so how did it turn into actually starting to promote shows? Like, what was the first show? What was that first, like, did you start helping out on someone else's show and then you were like, oh, this is a cool business? Or
yeah, so basically what I was saying, like the promotions company at the time that was throwing Boston hip hop shows, or just shows in Boston at the Middle East, was company Metro Concepts, and they just had it on lock. And I just, I went to Northeastern and I got an internship with them, and I was just kind of like the street team kid for them before social media, just hanging out, handing out flyers and whatnot. And, but this is around 2002, 2003, the music business of selling CDs and crashes because of Napster and Audio Galaxy and all these other things that popped up. So, they were throwing concerts, but they were also street team marketing companies, so hanging up posters, passing out retail stuff. They were doing that because for indie budgets, you didn't always have a radio budget. So that was kind of like really grassroots organic marketing. And I was that guy too. So I'd be handing out stuff on the street to all the college kids in Boston, retail locations, show let outs. But like I said, after the crash, and no one was buying CDs, they were just downloading. Those budgets got slashed and they were done, and they just kind of moved on. But what was still there, which you couldn't download, was a live event experience. So me in my early 20s, I'm like, with a hustling background, I was just like, you know what? Let me try this. And I went full force into it around 2004. And
that's crazy.
Been going ever since for 17 years.
So what was that first Leedz show?
Royce the 5'9".
Oh, wow.
He was headlining. I think he just released the Death Is Certain album, I think. I forget. I think that was what it was, around 2004. Could be wrong. The undercard was Cunnilinguist, Tone Deaf. This battle rapper Juice. He's actually, I think, the only one that beat Eminem in a battle. And the local act was Jake the Snake, who then went by JDS at the time, and it was hosted by Peter Parker and Ed O.G. at the Middle East. That was my first call. I went downstairs right away. I was like, I went hard.
Let's
like,
go big.
Hard to go home.
Yeah. For people who don't know, the Middle East is this kind of complex venue where it's got this upstairs room that's 200 capacity about, and downstairs is closer to 800 or
575.
575. Mac Miller had that shit packed back-to-back nights back in the day. And it felt like 800 people in there, but
probably was.
Yeah. And so it's this great venue in Boston. It's really, the center of live music in Boston. And, the shows were just, they still are, but the shows are always just amazing there because you're just packed in this downstairs venue, and you walk into this venue basement. And you go down this big basement, and it's just this open venue with this stage that's not a huge stage, but it's, perfect for the environment. And it's just this long hall with the crowd. And but doing that one as your first show, it's big.
Yeah. It used to be an old bowling alley. That's what it was. That's why it's long.
I was going to say, because it is kind of weirdly long compared to other venues. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
It was an old crickety, I've known people that used to go to it when they were kids. And they were like, this is a really old bowling alley that was kind of crickety. And then the Middle East, they just took it over and turned it into a venue. And it was just, to me, it's still one of the best places to see a show. It's in the downstairs because, the sight lines are good, and it's a basement. So the ceilings aren't high. The sound is just so condensed. When you got a full house in there, it's so intimate. And so, to me, it's the best. The other places, Brighton Music Hall is a great venue. Paradise is a great venue. Sinclair's a great venue. They're all around there. But like the Middle East downstairs is just a different thing. You know what I mean? And it's so much history, especially for hip hop. When you walk in here, you're walking into like a hip hop landmark. So there's just like, to me, it's just the low ceilings work against you, but for a performance, it's works for you.
Yeah, it does feel really just packed in this great way. And that's, I feel like one of the things that's so missed right now with what we're all going through is you can't recreate that in a digital show or anything like that. The feeling of being around so many people in such a tight group and everyone feeling good because the performer is just killing it, and that collective positive energy that everyone has when they're packed in like that is just so, irreplaceable. You can't replicate that unless you're just in the venue, And
what's crazy is before smartphones being in there, when you didn't have like phones to be on, when you were just so like watching all of the show, not looking at your phone, and people were smoking in there, and, blunts and cigarettes, and it was just like it's just changed a lot. But back then it was like in the 90s, and I'm sure that place has been doing that downstairs has been around since I think early 90s it's been around. But just the experience of that,
Well, and you are just there in that moment, and there's no posting it online to show everyone else, look where I'm at the Middle East. It's crazy. No. It's like, no, you had to be there.
Right. And that was a huge thing. And that was a very, and it was a different time too, you know, and a different type of experience people went through.
So did you immediately have success in the promotion business, or was it kind of a grind when you first started out doing these shows and trying to figure out how to actually turn this into a business that you really felt good about? Or
yeah, it was actually very hard. I wasn't full time right away. You know, I was selling cell phones in the Prudential Center, doing leads on the side. And, you know, it was very risky, man. There was a lot of shows I lost a lot. That first show I did, I lost $3,000. You know what I mean? Didn't do what I thought it was going to do, you know? And it was a rookie mistake. And I just overpaid everything, you know, which a lot of promoters do because they just think it's way bigger than it is. But, you know, it was a grind, man. I mean, you got to think about it. Without social media, right? So you're handing out flyers physically all the time. So when there's a show, you got to go out. You got to go to the same locations and re-put stuff up because it gets ripped down and taken away, you know, or used or thrown away. You got to be on the street handing stuff out to people more of the time, rain, sleet, snow. You know what I mean? Like, it was a grind, definitely. And you're going out on off nights all the time, working during the day, trying to make money, then going out at night, organizing a street team. You know, it was, it took a while, man. It probably took me about 2 to 3 years of doing it before I could go full time.
Yeah, those costs, I feel like, probably add up pretty quickly. You got street team people on the flyers.
Yep.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, it was all about the flyer back then. Like I said, it was just like you had a good flyer, and then you'd have the backside to be another show. You'd have like maybe 3 shows on one flyer, and always going to the airport to pick up the flyers.
Right.
And, I still have some of my old ones, but you know, it's when social media came around and I didn't have to do that as much, and I don't do that at all. That was a relief. I mean, some people are like, I miss flyers. Well, okay.
So you're not handing out any flyers anymore, even at like
really,
shows,
no.
like come see this next show or anything like that?
No.
Yeah.
No,
no need.
You're better off spending that money on digital marketing, you know?
Right.
You'll reach more people.
Like Facebook ads and stuff like that.
Yeah, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, yeah, that type of stuff. You'll reach with a click of a button. You know, I could reach tens and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, whereas this is probably going to hit like 500 maybe, you know, like
right.
amount.
Right.
I'm relieved with the technology, even though I miss not having it, but in a just different time of like not relying on it. But at the same time, it is helped us promoters out a lot.
Well, we talked about this on your Instagram a little bit last time around, but from the outside looking in, I feel like that's what's allowed you to just continue to succeed through multiple generations of artists and different situations, because you're always adapting, I feel like, to the new way to promote these shows, and not even just the shows, but even with what you're doing with social media and everything else, you're continuing to be a force in the culture, you know, particularly in Boston, but even beyond, and kind of staying up on the new ways to kind of run your business. And I feel like that's really impressive for one, you know. But was there kind of a point where you went from, I'm loving throwing these concerts to, all right, this is really my thing for, you know, for forever? Or did you just kind of progress into that slowly? Or did you know from the jump that like, I want to do this full time? When did that really become real for you?
Well, like, you know, I think, I mean, I wanted to do, as soon as I got into it, I was like, this is what I want to do. At some point, it felt more like a job, though. You know what I mean? Like, it felt more like I gotta work. And, you know, the excitement and the allure of it all just kind of wore off. But, you know, it's tough to say when that actually happened, but,
sure.
You know, when you've been doing it for so long, I mean, I've gone through stages of it where I really loved it. And then there was other stages where I was like, all right, this is just a job. I've got the company set up. I'm just kind of running through the routine, you know, and that whole thing. And then there's been times where I've revamped that and I've changed my way of thinking and gotten really excited into it. You know, it comes and goes, you know, just like anything, you know, it's like it goes ups and downs with your inspiration and your enthusiasm. What I find now is I just got to dig for that enthusiasm. I got to find things that inspire me, and I got to go look for it because it's not going to come to me. So I got to kind of like put in, how can I revamp this and make this better? What's the new thing? I'm not the best on staying on the new things. I listen to people, I learn from other people, really. They teach me more things, and I just kind of follow that and just kind of put my own spin on it. But, like I said, adapted to all the new trends that came out, music trends that have happened since I've been in the business is crazy. Like I said, I started out, there was no social media, you know what I mean? And it was really only a few styles of hip hop too. And now it's like 7 different styles of hip hop, 8 different social media platforms. I mean, this whole virtual thing is going to start, so it's like, it's exhausting sometimes, it's like, man,
yeah.
I gotta get on top of another thing, It's
yeah.
like,
how do you stay on top of it? I mean, yeah, I imagine you have people around you.
Yeah, I don't on everything, I had guys that, like, when Leedz was in full swing and I was at the Middle East full swing, I couldn't run my social media. Like, I had to have somebody, shout out Jake. Jake did it. Jake Milo, he did it. And before him, there was a couple others, but there's no way I would have been able to do that. Like you got to delegate. I didn't do all my flyering at one point too. I had the street team, I can't get on everything. I'm only a human being. And under these times, unfortunately, I definitely can't do everything because the situation we're in.
Right.
But, you do what you can, but it's hard. I'm kind of a one-man operation at this point.
Yeah, so I want to give a little history to you and I's relationship for people that are listening, because I think it makes for a really interesting part of this discussion. So I started doing music, as most people that are listening know, when I was in high school, and I connected with Matty Trump, who goes by Matty Harris now. And Matty was producing all Sammy Adams music, and Sammy Adams was killing it at the time. This was like 2010, and Boston's Boy had just came out, and it was the #1 album on iTunes. And Matty was kind of the guy who helped produce most of that album and engineered the whole thing, and was shouted out on all the songs. And so I was like, I got to get with this guy Matty. He's kind of the dude in Boston from the production standpoint, and I want to up my game and kind of get exposed to that world. So I connected to Matty just by kind of cold emailing him like a million times, and finally ended up doing a studio session with him at Cybersound Studio in Boston. And we started making music together. And initially he was just like, oh, I'm going to charge this kid a bunch of money to make me, to produce some music. He was just getting his money. And so I'm like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to pay this guy $500 to make me a beat, because I feel like if I get in there, I can kind of tell the story, show him what I do, get him to buy into what I'm doing, and build maybe a bigger business relationship with him. And I was 16, 17 years old at the time. And so we start doing exactly that after the first studio session. He was like, you know what, this shit's kind of dope. Like, actually, I could, produce your stuff. We could start kind of taking this a little bit more seriously. And he's like, one of the things you need to do is start doing some live shows and get some live shows under your belt. And you got to talk to my boy Leedz, because he runs all the shows out here. And so, back then, that was really true. You do need to kind of get your chops up when you're doing live performances. Nowadays, that doesn't really happen as much. There are sometimes people who have 2-3 million followers who have never done a show before, and hundreds of millions of streams and have never done a show before. But back then, you really had to kind of pay your dues in terms of doing the shows and learn how to be on stage and do all of that. So I reach out to Leedz, and he puts me on an opening show for Fashawn at the Western Front, which was an old venue in Boston that used to do a lot of shows. And I think I went on at like 6:30 p.m., and I had like my mom and a couple of my family members there and a couple friends. And, I was trying to sell tickets at my high school, but it was like a 21 plus show, and I'm 16 years old trying to sell tickets to a 21 plus show. But I'm just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do whatever I need to prove to this guy Leedz that I'm serious. I want to, make something happen here. Yeah. And so we do that first show, and it was cool. And this was very early on. I didn't even have a lot of fans at this point, but progressively things started to get more and more real for me, because I started putting music out on the internet and being connected to Matty and Sammy and Chris Webby and all these guys who were starting to kind of really build a buzz at the same time, brought a lot of eyes and ears onto my music too. And so I started growing a little bit of a following regionally in the Boston area too. And so then Leedz did a show with Chris Webby, and then I was not just on opener on that show, but I was kind of direct support right before Chris Webby.
Yep.
And so that one was all ages. And I sold probably 200 tickets to that show.
Yep.
And that was at the Middle East downstairs. And it was just a epic show. Chris Webby killed it. I had a great time. And since then, you know, me and Leedz have probably done, I don't know, 25 shows together in Boston. You know, between random things and then my own headlining shows and opening things and different things. But, you know, to bring it back to what we were just talking about, I'm curious. Obviously, you know, I reached out to you and was like, hey, man, you know, I want to do a show, whatever. But I'm curious with Sammy and all this stuff that was coming out in the Boston Northeast area in 2010, this kind of new genre of what people were calling frat rap. Mm-hmm. When did you kind of take notice to that and feel like, oh, this is actually something that is, you know, really directly related to my business and doing shows, and I need to kind of look into this genre and promote more shows like this? How did that happen?
Well, it happened to be, you know, so weird. It was a strange thing. It was, I mean, I did a show with Sam Adams at the Western Front before he blew up. He was rapping by the name Wiz at the time, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And, you know, I thought it was just like, you know, I thought this is right, you know, before the Fashawn show. I just thought it was like this guy just had a lot of friends. You know what I mean? Because you see that a lot. You know, sometimes you do shows with people and then just like, oh, they just got a lot of friends and they just show up. So I didn't think anything of it. And then, you know, but, you know, he was adamant, and we did another one at Harper's Ferry. And then all of a sudden Boston Boy comes out, and it's like the biggest thing. The biggest thing to hit New England in a long time.
It blew up,
and no one could put their finger on how did this happen so quickly. I think that's what everybody was just so blown away by. But, you know, as a promoter, you want to book acts that bring people into the venue. You make money, artist makes money, the club makes money. Everyone's happy when that scenario. So when I come across an act that can do that, I want to try to work with them as much as possible. It's not about my taste, whether I like the music or not. But that's just kind of how it went. And then, you know, obviously you came along, and Matty was big adamant at you. He's like, yo, Cam's the next thing. And like, we started working together. Webby came along, Woody Allen came along. And, you know, I didn't really have my finger on the pulse when it came to that. But, you know, if people got good agents and good whatnot, they'll tell you, like, this thing is starting to work. This thing is working. Chitty Bang. I mean, all this stuff. It's like, I'll adapt to any genre if it's going to put people in. My whole thinking is business-wise, if it's going to bring people out, let's do it. You know, at that time I was full-time. So I was like, whatever works, man. You know, whatever works. And let's get them out. And that was a good era to be a hip-hop promoter, promoting those shows. People were coming out left and right. And that was when I was able to do all ages shows. Before that, I wasn't really allowed to do all ages shows. No one would allow hip-hop to be all ages. It had to be at least 18 plus. But with that genre, it was clear that you had to do it all ages. And I was all in. You know, I did so many shows in that lane, and that was a good lane. And like that lane has changed, and now it's a different lane, or that it's still other lanes. But yeah, I mean,
so how has it changed? Like, because you know, I live in LA, and so I'm not as connected to the Boston shows as much. But I'm curious how it's changed over the years.
Or as far as the sound goes, or
just like in terms of the shows in general, like does it still feel the same?
I mean, the things have changed. You know, at that time, the Middle East was kind of like the main spot.
Yeah.
Now there's like different, like Bright Music Hall is really popular. Sinclair is really possible. Middle East isn't the only option in town like it used to be. So,
right.
You know, and those are corporate gigs. And then the other thing I like to point out, the Middle East was an independent club that independent artists and promoters could really book their own shows there. You didn't have to go through, whereas the other ones I just mentioned were Live Nation, AEG, right. You know, that's like a big corporate thing. Not anybody could just walk in there and throw a show. That was what was beauty about the Middle East. It was open to everybody. Welcome, come on in, throw a show.
Yeah,
and guys like me.
Yeah, I want to hear about that Live Nation breakdown too. But yeah, go ahead and finish your point.
But yeah, so that was the Middle East for you. So like at that time, 2010, 12, to me, that's like where it goes from there, up until 2015, everything's rocking pretty good, man. Like, then after that scene came like ASAP Rocky and all that. That was a whole different era, that came in, Action Bronson, Joey Badass, different styles, and then until, trap kind of took over in 2015. A little after that, I don't know the exact dates.
Yeah, something around there. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that comes in, and that sound is huge. And then I'm doing all these genres I'm doing all these artists along the way. You know what I mean? Like when Southern hip hop, like A$AP Rocky, and all of a sudden everything's Southern. You know what I mean? Going that lane, and then going into trap, and then going into whatever worked. That's just kind of how you have to be as a promoter. My core listening is East Coast boom bap for the most part, Wu-Tang, Gang Starr, all that. That's mine. But that sound wasn't as popular in those days, in this time era. So I did that, and I did all these other things. And the diversification of it all is what's kept me surviving all these years. And I got more enjoyment out of that, of booking just a good show. It was like I got the rush and the enthusiasm from actually booking it. Once it was booked, it was like, all right, I'm on to the next. Like the show was just kind of going through the motions. The art and the rush was actually getting it.
Just getting the win of getting that artist.
Of announcing it. Here it is. Bang, here's another one. Then I was on to the next.
That's so funny that's what it is for you. Yeah.
Well, that's what it becomes, because no offense to the shows, it's just like when you start seeing the shows all the time, it becomes the same old thing. The excitement is getting the new thing, right?
Totally.
Like booking the cool show and having a good calendar. That the show becomes actually a lot of work when you're there. Luckily, shout out Jake, was stage managing at that point. But when you got to stage manage a show, it's not actually the funnest thing in the world. I'm telling you right now. It's actually
what does that entail?
Well, it entails from getting advancing the show. So I book it. I got to advance with the artist. What do you need? What kind of equipment you need? What time you're coming in? I'm going to be there. Then advance with the club. What time they're coming in? To set up the times and all that. Meanwhile, I'm promoting it, making sure it's getting as much maximum exposure and get as much people coming in. I'm worried about that. I've got the stress of worrying about if enough people are coming. Meanwhile, trying to coordinate what I just said. Then there's the day of the show where they roll in at sound check, if they roll in at sound check. But you're supposed to be there anyway at sound check, meeting their demands, making sure the rider's all set, talking with the club, making sure the guest list is all squared away, making sure the opening acts are squared away, making sure the equipment's good, boom. Then there's the door. Then the door's open, and you got to make sure everything's squared away. You're stressing to get everything together before the door's open. Then when the door's open and everything's good, you can take a breather. But then, generally, you eat around that time. Right. Then the first act hits. And then you got to coordinate the first act. If there's a bunch of locals, you got to coordinate that thing, clear the stage, keep everything cool, keep people back from trying to get backstage, meet the headliner's demands, whatever they may be. Sometimes they're easy, sometimes they're definitely not. And keep the show running on schedule, because things can fly off the handle real quick. Keeping all the staff happy and answering all those questions that they keep popping up. And then at the end of the night, after they rock, then you got to make sure everyone gets paid properly.
So and you're dealing with cash and a whole bunch of other shit too, right? Because it's all complicated.
Yeah. And anything goes sometimes. So as you can see, that's a stressful job.
Well, and then you got to make sure that you're making your money too. Yeah, and your reputation. Yeah,
my reputation's on the line. People's safety is on the line. The club's reputation's on the line. Everything is just got to be good. I was able to do it and keep my reputation. That's why I'm still here, is because I was able to do it. I took it serious as a job. To me, it wasn't a party. It was a job. So that mentality kind of drains. It's not as fun for me as it is for the artist or the fans. You know what I mean? Me, I've got liability on my mind and just seeing it as a job and getting through it, which worked out fine. But the fun part was in booking it. It was funner to book it, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting. It makes sense
and
when
you have like, you can say, oh, I booked the show and I did that. And like, that's kind of my ego there, but like, but that was like the rewarding thing of it. But then the problem is like a promoter, you think you can become attached to that feeling, right? Like that's like, then you think every RV show you book is yours, right? Like, and then when it goes somewhere else, you're like, what the, but that's not the reality of it. The reality is it's not yours. You just happen to book it. Granted, there's relationships and all that, but like,
right. But you got to stay on your toes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when competition comes in, it's like, it's hard not to get mad when they booked a show that you did last time, but that's just capitalism. So,
right. Right. Yeah.
You got to learn to deal with it.
Well, one thing that I always felt when I was younger doing all these shows, I saw you as this incredibly disciplined guy at these shows, and you took it super serious. You were, you were the nicest dude and like super accommodating to artists and all this stuff, but you were taking this shit very serious. And that, I think, for the artists and everyone else that was involved in the shows, made people feel like, all right, I can't do something stupid. I can't, fuck this up. I can't try and, tell them that I didn't, get the tickets that I was told them I was going to get, or, whatever it might be. And that discipline that you bring to this creative business, I feel like is probably what has created a lot of success in a lot of ways too, because, I think this is a world that can get, muddy real quick with people that just want to party and be in a live show environment and not take it super serious and disciplined from a business standpoint. And I never saw that with you. You were always super on point. If we were in the Middle East, Leeds is in the corner somewhere on top of it, just knowing what the fuck was going on, everywhere in the whole entire room, Yep.
I mean, it was maintaining chaos, really. You can't really control it, but you can kind of maintain it so it just functions, like obviously if there's an incident, someone's getting beaten up or does something, like you got to kick them out and whatnot. But like, it's just kind of like you're just maintaining it. But that's stressful, man, And in the beginning, I wasn't always like that. When I was drinking and drugging and partying, I mean, I've been banned from the Middle East in the beginning. So, for not taking it serious enough. And that was a wake-up call for me, because they were like, listen, you're partying too much. You're not taking this serious. We have our safety's on the line. You gotta get this squared away. Like, you come back in 6 months when you're squared away. And I did. And like I said, it was a job. And once I just was like, it's a job, and let's make money, let's get through this and on to the next. Because at that point, when we started working together, I mean, there were months I was doing like 3 or 4 shows a week.
Crazy.
100%. A lot of work.
100%.
I mean, there was times I was doing 5 shows a week sometimes in peak season, in the fall or spring.
Well, and you would have nights where you have 2 shows going on at once, right? Because you have two rooms in that venue.
Yeah, and then then when Sonia came, there was times when I had 3.
Right.
So it's like, I became the hip hop default in that club, and in the beginning, it was just really because of default. It was because nobody wanted to do it, because the job is very difficult. Because people don't understand how difficult it is. If you've ever thrown your own show, you know what I'm talking about. People will judge you that haven't done it. But when I had made people like, Leedz is such an asshole. He's such a jerk at the shows, and then they go throw their own show and they come back to me and say, I got so much respect for you.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring you on, man, because I don't think that there's a lot of staying power with a company like yours. I feel like there's a lot of turnover and a lot of guys that don't have the success and the track record like you do, and I think it's an incredible story.
Yeah. And
I think there is maybe some misconceptions out there, of.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's everything. But
did I handle every situation properly? No. I mean, No, I didn't handle everything properly. Did I make some mistakes? Absolutely. But in the same way, I didn't really have, like, I blazed a trail in front of me. I didn't really have anyone teaching me along the way. I just learned from my mistakes. And luckily my mistakes weren't big enough to get me banned or cause so much problems. But, it's a hard job, and there's a lot of expectations, and the expectation that the Boston hip hop community has on you as a promoter is tough to meet because there's so many artists demanding that they get booked. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you got to be, it's like if you don't book them, you're controlling the scene, you're a monopoly. And I also got in an earlier time before the corporations took over, where you guys like me could exist. It'd be very hard for someone like me to come along in these times, going up against, Live Nation and AEG as an independent promoter, and survive. Like, it'd be nearly impossible. You have to go work for them, because it's just, they're just so dominant. So, like, I came up in a time where they didn't really run the 200 to 500 club capacity scene. So I was able to exist. And, and I spent the last half of my career, the last 5 years, really trying to let as many promoters come in the Middle East and do their own shows and try to get as much in there as possible. I did not want to be the only guy. I definitely did not. Maybe in the beginning I was really competitive, probably too competitive, but towards the end I was like, I loosened up and I wanted everybody to support
the independent promoters.
I didn't want to do it all.
Right.
I didn't want to do it all. I didn't want to be that.
So how does that dynamic work these days? And how did it get to this point where Live Nation and, a couple of these other big companies have such a kind of monopoly on the whole entire live show world? I mean, is it really to the point now where, being an independent promoter is just like not even really a thing as much anymore?
Yeah, I think it really is. I think I'm honestly, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, I think I'm the last of the dying breed. Yeah. I think slowly but surely, man, like, it started when the Bowery came in and they were a New York company, and then they built the Sinclair venue, which was 500 capacity, which is direct competition for, the Middle East. And then Harper's Ferry, which was an independent venue at the end, mostly known for jam bands, but we're doing some hip hop at the end, got bought out by Live Nation, became Brighton Music Hall. They get deep pockets and deep connections. It's hard to go against that. My reputation as a hip hop promoter in the Middle East as being a hip hop venue is what saved hip hop in the club.
Right.
But the other genres of music really took a hit in that, because Bowery was more alternative, Brighton was more rock. Those guys were they owned it, and they were nicer and cleaner venues. They were newer and nicer, and people just started wanting to play the newer and nicer. The old grungy rock club didn't have the same feel that it used to have. But hip hop didn't care. They just wanted to go. Luckily, I was able to survive as hip hop, but the venue needs to book more than hip hop to be it. But they came in and it's all about market share. And that's capitalism. Like I said, there's nothing as much as I complain and scream about it at the time, it's just the way America runs, unfortunately. You can have a nice business and it's all working well for a long period of time, and then someone can just decide, hey, I got more money and more of this, and I'm going to build something bigger and better right next to you, and you can't really do anything about it.
So how does that work? These guys go in and actually own the physical venues on a regional level? Like they'll go in and own Brighton Music House?
I think they rent. It came to Sinclair and Brighton Music. I can't speak for them, but I think those were rentals. They didn't own the venue. But Boston, the original OG promoter, Don Law, he's like the original guy. He had owned a lot of venues, owned a lot of, that was his key. He owned the assets and then sold them to Live Nation. I don't really want to speak about all their business plan. All I know is they're good at what they do.
Sure.
And it's hard to compete. And I think we see this in many businesses. It's just hard to compete when you're the small guy against the big guys, and when things become corporate, and what do you do in that situation, but yeah, and they're also nationwide. So it's not just Boston, they're across the country, you know what I mean? So I can book an agent, like you can book a whole tour with Live Nation in one swoop.
If you're on the level as an artist where you're able to do 20 cities, it's a great turnkey solution because you're using this company and you're doing the whole thing. But, you know, the thing about the independent promoter from an artistic standpoint is, you know, I was able to reach out to you because of my connection to Maddie, you know, and even if I didn't know Maddie, I probably could have just emailed you or met you at a show and been like, hey, let's do this. And me being able to get in front of 500 Chris Webby fans, you know, gave me the chance to make 500 new fans. And then from there, 2,000 and so on. And I think that aspect of this is maybe dying out. And of course, it's being replaced on the internet. And in a lot of ways, the internet's great because it's democratized your ability to blow up and grow fans and everything like that. But yeah, you know, I mean, it's definitely, you know, interesting to see that dynamic of, you know, being an artist regionally and trying to get in with an independent promoter in your city and doing a show, you know, brick by brick, building, you know, fans that way is, you know, not completely an option anymore because of this changing dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, I think promoters will exist on a smaller niche level. You know, the promoters I've seen that exist these days, they operate in a small little world that for some reason isn't super popular or is just like, you know, for some reason it just works out on a niche level.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was, but like I was just a bigger niche because hip hop is such a massive genre. So I was you know, because the genre I was in, I was able to survive. And like I said, the history of me and the club, that's really what did it. My relationships with the agents over the years was like, okay, if you're good at your job, people will want to work with you. They're not going to try. So they knew like, if like I book it with Leedz, I'm going to get extra promotion that I normally in the hip hop world I normally wouldn't get because he knows what he's doing. He's got a network. And that's what it is. Because if you booked it with corporate, it's kind of like a blanket, right? It's just like they mix all the promotion together, whether it's hip hop or singer-songwriter or whatever. It's just, you know, it's going on the Live Nation social media. You know what I mean? And that might not work for a hip hop audience as well. It's not like they target things. I mean, I'm sure they're better at targeting now, but with me, they knew like, oh, this is going to get more better hip hop promotion work with me. So that helped. But that's kind of what you have to be. You have to have a network and have something to offer that's different than those.
And I feel like you at a certain point got to a point where, you know, having the Leedz name on a show brought a certain amount of people just off of that because they know that if it's a Leedz show, it's this quality of show. It's something that they can expect, you know, that they've seen before, and you know they'll try it out even if they don't necessarily know the artist super well or something like that. It's a Saturday night, they want to go do something in Cambridge, you know, and Leedz is putting on a show. I'm going to that, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I will say like my logo helped, but you know, really it's about the artist. Really, it's about the headliner, people coming out to see them. But you kind of knew if you saw me on it that this was, you know, because there were some promoters where the headliner didn't show up or whatnot.
Right.
There were some questionable shows, but you never saw that with me. You know, they'd always show. I mean, if they didn't show, you know, I canceled shows, but there was never. They're not showing up night of. You know, everyone's there. You know, but yeah, I mean, reputation obviously is very important as a promoter, and having your word counting. You know, like saying that something's going to be what it's going to be. You know, and there's a lot of that not going around at the time, especially in the middle in the music business. There was a lot of lying. You know, a lot of saying something was going to be something and it wasn't. So
right.
I've always tried to be like a man of my word.
So, what's your favorite show that you've done over the years?
Oh, geez,
if you could pick one or give me a top three, I mean that's got to be hard. I mean, you've done thousands of shows.
I want to see what I got to see the list because sometimes I can't. I forget.
You got a list?
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah. You know, Ghetto Boys was obviously great. That was just so classic. DJ Premier versus Pete Rock.
Oh yeah.
That first one we did was incredible.
That wasn't too long ago, right? That was in the last 5
8
years?
years. The first one was like 8 years ago.
Okay.
ASAP Rocky, Middle East Downstairs. Even though I'm not a super fan, the energy that night, unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. Mac Miller, obviously, Tune Rest in Peace, 2 nights back to back. Mobb Deep, Rest in Peace, Prodigy. So many good Mobb Deep shows. Those are always a classic. Let's see, what else? So, let me think of one that's a crazy. The Locks, our 10-year anniversary. That was a great show. KRS-One, arguably best live performer of all time. Always brings it. Funnest show, Coolio, hands down. Coolio,
really?
Funnest.
Why was it so fun? It's just a vibe in there?
It was just a great night, man. It was just a chill vibe. It was fun. He ended up getting on a fan's back and riding him like a horse. It ended up making like TMZ.
Yeah.
It was just Jay Electronica, Middle East Downstairs. That one, I mean, he was just that. He just jumped in the crowd and did everything a cappella. I mean, that was just insane. And then kind of like the no name, like the shows that when artists aren't famous yet.
Right.
Aloe Black at the Western Front. Right when he drops, wow. Right when he dropped, Can I Borrow a Dollar? And is that the name of the song? I think that's the name of the song. I Need a Dollar.
I Need a Dollar. Yeah.
That's what it was. I Need a Dollar. Common was Can I Borrow a Dollar? I Need a Dollar, and he's just about to blow, and he's playing the Western Front. That type of shit. Machine Gun Kelly, Middle East Upstairs, sold out. He was just about ready to blow. Let's see what else we got here. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, that first Chris Webby show was kind of monumental. For that was pretty as well.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one.
Party Next Door, even though I'm not a huge R&B fan, sold out in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Yep. Brockhampton, Middle East Downstairs, crazy. I mean, Little Uzi Vert downstairs. I mean, these are artists I don't really listen to their music personally, but
right. But the energy of the room is just so incredible when you got like it's just the right moment in time with these artists, and they're just about to blow or they have, and but they're still at that point where they're going to do a 500 cap room, even though they're selling it out in 5 seconds, and it's just fucking incredible.
Jaden Smith downstairs.
Oh yeah,
great show.
Yeah.
Visuals were nuts. Ghostface Killer, one of my favorites downstairs. That's good, great.
Did you do one with Eminem? Lamar. I thought you posted a flyer at some point about some old Slim Shady thing.
Yeah, it was 99. I didn't do the show.
Okay.
I didn't even go to it, but he played right. The Slim Shady EP was out.
Yeah,
that's where he got his buzz, and then they booked a show off of that, and then the Slim Shady LP was about to drop, and he sold out the Middle East between those.
Got it.
Basically, the difference is the Slim Shady LP is where they add the Dr. Dre joints.
Right, right.
Probably a few others, but that was the EP was the demo that kind of got him the deal.
Got him signed, yeah.
Right. So he was touring in between there. So he played the Middle East right before the LP took off, and that's all. The story from there. But yeah,
well, that's what's so cool about some of the stuff that you've probably seen. A lot of people don't see what went into that huge success, beforehand. There are guys that had years and years of just grinding it out and building up these fan bases brick by brick before they got huge like that. And, someone in your position has probably seen that a million times. Artists that have come through and, can you tell when you see a guy like Machine Gun Kelly or, one of these, Lil Uzi Vert or any of these guys do a small capacity room? Can you tell something's different there and you feel like, oh, this guy's really going to go?
Yeah, you can kind of tell after a while. You just kind of gauge the momentum and you see how fans are reacting to it. When fans are screaming every other word and just going nuts, and you just kind of know, okay, this is really working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the big jump, I will say, from back then to now is you really had to grind it out on the tour market a little more. Like you didn't you really had to play a 200 cap show before you could do a 500.
Right.
You didn't really just jump to 500. There wasn't a lot of that. But now, because of social media tools and streaming and all these other tools, that people can really grow their fan bases without touring as much. So people can blow up quick. Sometimes people's first plays are 1,000 capacity.
Right.
Like, if it's big enough. Like, that really wasn't a thing. You had to like tour, do the 200, make sure you sold that out, then moved on, you know? So we're seeing an accelerated fan base growth with new technology.
Well, and it's interesting. I think that people who are in those positions probably need to get put on game super quick, because they didn't do those 200-person shows or opening shows where they saw the artist in front of them, you know, that was bigger than them at the time. You know, I learned a lot doing those early shows and opening for guys and seeing what they were doing and seeing how they were really taking the background serious. And, you know, they had tech and all this different stuff that they were paying attention to. And the stage presence, and, you know, sticking your chest out and keep, you know, not rapping to the ground, and you know, doing all this stuff, these little things that you learn by just putting in those 10,000 hours. You know, I imagine that's not happening as much sometimes when people just kind of blow up overnight through social media, and then they're doing, you know, House of Blues, 2,000-3,000 people. And, you know, I wonder how that goes if, you know, someone on their end's telling them like, all right, hey, like, we need to do a crash course on stage presence and all this other shit. But,
well, it's like, at the end of the day, like, you know, the show is really, you know, where artists make a lot of money, you know?
Right.
So you want that to be the best it can be, because you want to keep people, you know, historically, that was always the where artists made all their money. You know, they made all of it at shows. You know, they might have got screwed on the record deal, but they make their money on the shows. And if you didn't have a good stage show, people aren't going to keep coming out. They might come see you once, they might come see you twice, you know, while they're young and stuff. But if your show isn't good, you're not going to keep them coming out. And unfortunately, what I saw the most of is the quality of the stage show go down. People lip syncing, rhyming over their own tracks. That became more and more. And we talked about the amateur of it. People's breath control, not the way it needed to be, forgetting their lyrics. People got getting away more with that because they just didn't care about that much, or someone didn't school them. Like, that is something I have to say, like, really is accelerated over the last 5 years.
You see that a lot more now. Yeah. Guys just coming and rapping over their own song.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the sage, like, you know, obviously everyone says put your hands up, you know, and then make some friggin' noise and all that other stuff. But when it became like, and people, like, I don't know if the fans even cared. That was the crazy thing about it, is like, maybe they were just there for the feel of the music, and okay, whatever. You're a fan, you want to pay for that, that's fine, it's your choice. But that's kind of really what it became, more about just dancing and jumping around to whatever, and it didn't really matter that the MC was lip syncing or not. I've seen
just creating like a party.
I've seen sold out shows in the downstairs in Sonia where the headliner probably was lip syncing for 75% of it.
Unreal. It is, you know, it's a changing art form for sure. And I think a lot of it now is more about the experience of being in proximity to the artist that you think is like so cool because you're following them on social media and whatever. And they're not necessarily going there to take in the live performance, the poetry, you know, hearing the vocals live versus on the track. And that's great. And I think that it's just, you know, it reflects the change in how people are consuming stuff and what people care about. And I think that in a lot of ways, people do just follow these artists now and, you know, just get super behind their whole entire brand and just love them as a person, because we're so much more aware of, you know, artists day to day now that we just feel like, you know, we're just super engaged with these people and we want to go to a show and just, you know, be with the artists. But if you can add on top of that a great stage presence and a great performance and vocal control and all this stuff, and, you know, bringing that live music element into it, that can, you know, make for an incredible set that you can do for years and years and years, to your point. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I would say. Like when I was first doing shows, when people, if that it was ever to happen, that someone would just lip sync over their set, you'd be booed right and thrown off the stage.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you couldn't get away with that. But like I said, if the fans that are paying don't care, then who am I to say anything? You know? Yeah, I have my opinion on it, but like I'm not, I'm not the all authoritarian.
Yeah.
You know, especially if there's a packed house, I'm gonna work on your mic skills.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Right.
But that is I wish people would take that more serious.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's cool, man.
But then I think about it is like, if all you care, if some of these people, the fans only care about the song, maybe they care just about the song and not about the artist so much. That's why it doesn't bother them. I don't know. Like, or do they not care about the skill? You know, I don't know.
I do think it's less about skill now. I think it's less about skill and it's more about feeling. You know, how does this song and this artist and the whole package make me feel? And, you know, the genre has changed. It's not a lyrical genre as much as it used to be. And I think there's still people that are doing that. And those people probably have great, you know, lyrical live shows and live performances and stuff like that. But yeah, I think a lot of younger people now care more about the vibe of the whole entire thing than they do necessarily about how the lyrics are correlating live.
Yeah, I think it depends on there's tons of artists rapping really well over trap beats. There's tons.
100%.
I see it all the time. But I shouldn't speak for the whole thing, because there are tons of artists that have come through the Middle East that I've seen that ripped it on trap, hands down. Denzel Curry, beast, absolute beast. You know, just the name of, you know, one few, but you know what I mean? Like, but, I'm speaking to you know, we saw this a little bit with some of the recent music that don't do that, but it's not everything. But there is some really big artists that do that. I will say that.
Yeah.
But there is still a lot of people that don't.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
So do you get a lot of like crazy demands from artists that are coming through? Like, you know, what's some of the crazier shit that you have to deal with? Like, you know, people, requesting crazy shit in the green room and stuff like that. Do you see that a lot?
You don't get a lot of that, you know, they know where they are. They're at the Middle East, you know, people love to drink their expensive alcohol. They want, you know, rosé champagne and stuff like that. Some people, generally they want their booze and they want their food or they want their money.
Yeah.
The most outrageous stuff is what people think they're worth. That's kind of the tough part. And that's always a tough conversation. That's another, you know, tough part of the job, is negotiating what someone's worth is. That's never an easy conversation.
Right.
You know, you don't want to, you know, people, that's why I like dealing with agents, because the agents is at least not the artist. Like they have a little more, it's easier.
You can have an objective conversation with them.
Yeah. I mean, I want everybody to make as much money as possible. I'm just defending not losing money. Right. You know what I mean? Like, as a promoter, you make 15, 20% if you're lucky. You're not making 85. Artists is making most of the money. You just don't want to lose your shirt. So there's a lot of fear behind losing, right? And that's where most of all my trouble in the music business with artists have always been, is about money. And I hate it, but it's part of the job, you know? And there's not a lot of financial security in the music business. So this is a sensitive, hot topic. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I get that.
Sure.
And I'm more compassionate to that now. In the beginning, it was defending my financial insecurity, you know, like taking the risk. So that's tough.
Yeah, that transparency.
You know, that's probably the most
transparency
demanding thing. That's the most demanding thing artists want. They want a lot of money. Who doesn't want top dollar for their skill?
Right.
Why should I, you know, why would I take a short on anything? But as a promoter, it's tough to say. Things change. You might have did 500 people one day last time you played. Depending on what you've done since then, your attendance might go down. It might go up. We don't know. It's not guaranteed. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, all we're doing is guessing, making the best educated guess that we can to figure out how many people are coming out there, you know, and making sure you don't lose your money as an artist and I don't lose my money as a promoter and everyone's happy. You know, that's all I've ever wanted. But it becomes a battle sometimes. And that's probably the most demanding thing artists can be. And I don't even know how much sometimes it's the artist, it might be the agent just trying to beat me up on the price,
sure,
you know? Like,
sure.
Who knows? I don't know. Maybe
they're trying to get their cut too, you know? Yeah, everybody's just trying to get what they can get. Yeah, finding that balance and being transparent.
That's what I don't miss about this whole COVID break, is not having to do that.
Yeah.
You know, because money makes people change, and it makes people real sensitive, and man, you know, I just don't love negotiating that.
Yeah. That's the hardest part for you.
I used to, but nowadays it's boiling water.
Yep.
Boiling water.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
No.
So, I guess I'll just, to wrap this up, maybe I'll just ask, one last question, kind of,
sure.
What are you most excited for as things are starting to turn the corner with the virus and the vaccine rolling out and people starting to think about getting back into venues and doing shows? Are you feeling like that's around the corner for you? You think that's still pretty far away? Are you feeling excited at this point that, we're hopefully going in the right direction? And,
well,
how
I hope
feeling
that,
right now?
I don't know where I'm going to land. We don't know if the Middle East is going to open, if I'm even going back to that. I don't really know what my options are at the moment. I'll say this: if I never promoted another show, it wouldn't be the end of the world, because for 17 years I did it, and it was stress. As I have told you everything,
you had to run. Yeah.
It's pretty stressful, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't sound like an easy job. So, if if my run is over, then I'm okay with it. I've done enough. I did it longer than most. So I'm good. I do hope that it comes back for all the artists and everybody I worked with, and they can get back to their lives in that way, because I know that artists are losing out, not being able to tour. Not being able to sell merch at a show is a big hit for you guys.
Absolutely.
And that hurts. And I want that to come back as soon as possible. I'm excited to see what happens. I'm optimistic. I'm a little on the fence that there's going to be any live events before 2022, but might be able to get to that 2021 fall. Maybe. We'll see. I heard there's shows being booked, tours being done, but I don't know. Generally, you'd want to start promoting those events pretty soon if that was going to happen. But, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm just a little nervous about what venues are going to be still standing in Boston. Yeah. Boston is still a very expensive city, and venues on a smaller level will struggle to make $1 and pay those rent. And a couple have already gone down. So I'm a little nervous to see what's left.
Well, I'm hearing people say 25% capacity and stuff like that. I mean, how do you even make a buck at 25% capacity?
Trust me, you can't. I booked many shows that unfortunately did 25% capacity, and I've lost money, and I had the club owner yelling at me. So it doesn't work. Even at 50%, it doesn't work on a business plan. You need full capacity, or this doesn't work, in my opinion. And I've looked at the numbers. I mean, maybe depending on what someone's rent or ownership situation is, I don't know. I can't speak for every business out there, but you need as many people in there as possible. That's the business plan.
Right. They're probably just doing it for reputation at that point, right? Just like, okay, we got to at least get some people back in the door so that when we can open up to full, but that's tough, man, to put out all that capital just to lose money.
Well, you got to staff it. That's the issue.
Right.
You have to fully staff it, even if you're at limited capacity, because you still need certain jobs being done, like door person, security, bartender, manager, ticket person. You know what I mean? Like, these are all things that sound engineer. These people all need to get paid, whether it's 25% or 100% in there. So you really need to hit full capacity of potential to make some money. And you need those people drinking. That's the business model.
Right.
Booze being drank.
Yeah. Yeah. Shows are really they're just an opportunity to sell people alcohol. At the end of the day, that's
sadly enough, after all said and done, Budweiser really makes out.
Yeah. That's a good,
live events. You know, Budweiser is really the one that's making out, or whatever alcohol is being sold.
Right.
Or, Jameson.
Yep. A lot of Jameson.
PBR, Hennessy. Those are the real winners.
Right. Yeah, those are the guys that really have the monopoly on the live shows.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but people want to drink when they go out. So I don't hate to say it, but like, that's the fuel. People don't really want to be sober watching an event. I've seen it 100%. We had Sonya didn't have a liquor license. People didn't want to go there because they couldn't drink there.
Yeah.
So it's like people want to drink. So
totally.
No one's getting forced here.
Right. So. Leedz Edutainment. I got to say real quick, because I think I remember this. I think a while back you told me, you said it's Leedz Edutainment because you're edutainment because you're schooling these people on the game. Is that where the name came from?
No, man. My real name was, people think that. My real name is Edward.
Okay.
So when I was a DJ, I was Edu.
Okay.
Edu Leedz, that was my name.
Yeah.
The Leedz comes from a hobgoblin alias. His real name was Edward Leedz. And Peter Parker was my boy. So he was Peter Parker Spider-Man. I was Edu Leedz Hobgoblin.
Gotcha.
So when I started the company, I just flipped it. Leedz Edutainment. Yeah, obviously it is the KRS-One Boogie Down Productions album, Edutainment. Yeah, there's a level of schooling going on from that era. But that wasn't really the only thing.
I got you. I needed to clear that up.
I didn't want to be entertainment because at that time everybody was entertainment. So I wanted to stand out and be different.
Sure. Well, that's what you've done, man. And, I'm sure you're going to be doing that for many years to come. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Check out my guy Leedz on Instagram, Twitter. Is it just Leedz Edutainment on all the social medias?
At Leedz EDU or like leedzedutainment.com, all that good stuff.
Good shit. Well, we'll have you on again, man. If you're ever over here in LA, hopefully we'll get to do one in person. I'm going to start doing these in person too, so that'll be fun. But I'm sure I'll see you back on the East Coast too. And appreciate you coming on.
No doubt, brother. Talk soon.
All right. We out of here. Peace.